Hi, and welcome to another edition of Beer for Breakfast ABV. I am Danielle from Mornings on 91X. As always, I have my beer partner in crime with me, Paul Segura.
Aloha.
From Karl Strauss. And today we have Wild Barrel Brewing Company with us. This is the infamous Dr. Bill.
Hey, everyone.
And this right here is Chris White, the president and also co-founder. And there's another founder also, right?
Bill Sobieski, our brewer, who's back at the brewery brewing.
Well, we
As he should
appreciate
be.
you. We appreciate you. So
Sorry you couldn't be here, Bill.
we'll drink some for you, don't worry.
Yeah.
So welcome to Beer for
Thank you.
Breakfast. You guys are fairly new, right? You are not new to the scene, but your brewery is.
We opened September 30th. We're open 365 days a year, so we've been open every day since. We did our grand opening January 13th, and now we're just rocking right along.
Awesome. And you guys are located up in San Marcos, right?
Yes, 692 Rancheros Drive, San Marcos, right next to the new DMV. You'll see some flagpoles out front. You'll see a 12 by 12 foot illuminated wooden and metal sign that says Wild Barrel Brewing on it, and it's kind of hard to miss.
Awesome. Well, so what are we starting out with today?
So this beer is part of our San Diego Weiss series. San Diego Weiss is a Berliner Weiss style. We knew we wanted to pump it up. We also know people can't pronounce W-E-I-S-S-E, so I wanted to do San Diego Weiss. My partners agreed. And so this is the base beer, Sans Fruit. 5%, 3.2 pH, but it's more unique than your average base beer where they normally have a very lactic, just one-dimensional character. These have big stone fruits, so apricot and nectarine I like to pull out of it when I'm tasting it. Other people get some other things, but just really fun. What are your thoughts, Paul?
I get those. I get a lot of stone fruit, as a matter of fact. Did you use something other than lactobacillus in addition
No,
to?
Delbrueckii, just big slants of it.
Okay.
Not yogurt-based or anything like that. Pulled it from RBY,
Okay.
and it's just been working great for us.
So I think a lot of people are using the Lacto Brevis, which gives a lot of tart cherry flavor,
Right.
as opposed to Delbrueckii, which is the stone fruit.
We're going to use Brevis in some of our barrel programs that we have going on right now. It's just a little harder to wrangle to do it each batch from batch, and we're cranking out a lot of these beers because we're fruiting them, and we're going to have about 20 to 24 of these San Diego Weisses a year
wow.
with different fruits.
Very cool. Well, it's amazing that you guys are putting out so many barrel-aged beers and sour beers, given that you've only been open since January. So.
Well, the barrel-aged beers aren't started yet, Paul. We're letting the beer talk to the barrels and decide when they're going to be ready. But we do have Imperial Stouts and some fresh Woodford Reserve barrels, and we do have some Brevis and Delbrueckii in some different barrels, some multi-use Chardonnay barrels. So we're getting neutral wood right now to build up kind of the whole house culture so we can get it going.
Excellent.
Wow, there's a whole lot of science going into this. I'm like, kind of like, so I'm just going to enjoy my beer here.
Well, he's a guy with a breadth of experience. So there's no learning curve for.
Well, and kind of going into
him and Bill.
experience, what is your background?
So I discovered craft beer in 1977 when I was 15. And I've been around the craft beer scene ever since, so celebrating my 41st year. I was always a kid originally who traveled around the world and shared all these rare beers that he got with all of the initial breweries in the 80s. And then I just grew into a larger reputation and grew larger, but grew into a larger reputation as far as being knowledgeable about beer and becoming a beer historian and doing big crazy events and festivals, and was one of the first people to cellar beer. So I've had around 3,000 bottles of beer in my cellar for the last 3 decades. That's constantly rotated through big parties. Worked in the medical field, retired, and Greg and Steve from Stone wanted me to jump aboard, became their craft beer ambassador for about 8 years, where I was basically their beer expert, did all their festivals, events, and traveled around the country working with their distributorships and things like that. And just been around for a long time. And then finally, my good friend Chris White here said, why don't we open a brewery? I always thought I was going to open a great beer bar like a Hamilton's or Toronado, right? Because that's what everybody wanted me to do for decades. And I'd been consulting with a lot of breweries and bars. I felt really comfortable knowing exactly what we need to do to open a successful brewery. And so the time was right. And Bill was available as our brewer. We both liked what he could do. So the three of us got together and started Wild Barrel.
Wow. And so, Chris, how did you get into craft beer? Was it just a fan and you're like, hey, let's start a brewery?
Well, I have a cigar company, and I met Bill through Stone when he was doing the cigar and dinner pairings there. So, they do them about every quarter. They'd stop for a while, but we're starting them up again. But
It's amazing because that's how I also met Dr. Bill, was at an anniversary in the cigar lounge.
Is that right?
And there's this guy walking around with these really rare beers, and I was like, ooh, try that.
Nice.
So it's funny,
Nice.
connection.
Yeah, so, he was an expert on beer. I was an expert in cigars, and there was a beautiful marriage there. And, I would have never got into the craft beer industry in San Diego, and we have, 160 plus now, but, we have a, solid veteran team and, making good beers. So said, hey, why not take another vice or love of something and turn it into a business, right? So.
Finish your beer so you can have some strawberry there, sir.
So speaking of beer and cigars, don't you guys have a beer dinner coming up?
Yeah, March.
March 14th, yeah. It's
Excellent.
at Stone. It's sold out, unfortunately. It sold out quick, but we'll be doing them on a consistent basis.
So you guys need to jump on it quicker next time if you want to get there.
They're a fun concept because I always say there's nothing I can't pair with beer. So I've done everything from beer and whiskey and cigars and food all simultaneously, kind of a quadrangular pairing. I think I invented that term. But we do at Stone, we do 2 cigars, and each third of the cigar has different flavors. Anything artisanal has great flavor, right? We all agree, cheeses and things. So each third of the cigar has unique flavor and aroma. We do 5 dishes. We have a meet and greet where we start the cigars, and then we do 6 beers, and so they're all paired, and we do them simultaneously, so it's really fun.
Oh.
And people learn a lot about stuff.
Oh, that's a pairing that I've never heard of before, but it sounds like a good time.
It sounds fun.
Bill can pair anything with any beer.
So what is this? This color is beautiful.
Thank you. This is our San Diego Vice with strawberry. 5.6%. You'll notice, Paul, there's no phenolics going on, which is very uncommon with strawberry sour beers. Normally, it's like licking a Band-Aid, or some people say licking a nurse. I don't know, whichever you prefer. But it doesn't have those Band-Aid-y phenolic flavor. I knew you'd like that.
Sorry.
So we deseeded the strawberries. We had them deseed the strawberries when we brought it down to concentrate. A lot of times we use fresh fruit, but we also try to use concentrate. Not puree, nothing with binders or preservatives. So we have to go through the fruit quickly, but we have a really good company out of Fresno. No, we're not going to share the name of them. That gives us this amazing fruit and just sets up really nicely.
This is so good.
I haven't tasted it yet, but it's amazingly
Strawberry
fruit-forward for the nose.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
It smells like a strawberry Hawaiian punch or something.
Strawberry is such a hard fruit. It's such a subtle fruit, but this really
Absolutely, man. You've
has
got to use a
punch.
lot of it to get any of it.
Yep.
And this is more strawberry than I've ever seen or smelled with a beer before.
Well, it tastes like right at that point where it's like in the middle of strawberry season and they're really sweet. There's none of that bitter at all. It's exactly what I'm getting. This is amazing.
You taste none of the 5.6 ABV.
No. Mm-mm.
That's a sniper.
We wanted this, yeah, exactly. We wanted the sweet tart effect, right? We wanted people to realize just how sour the sans fruit is, but we didn't want to have that Lindemann's characteristic where it's just cloyingly sweet, but we wanted to push a lot of fruit. And we wanted to have, you'll see the fruited ones we bring today will all have a different characteristic. I didn't want you guys just going, this is a shitload of this is a ton of this is a ton of that. And talking to Chris and Bill, we all agreed that, we wanted them to have different effects. So with strawberry, we just wanted that beautiful aroma to come through. And so people would just say, wow, I've never had a strawberry beer like this.
Was the base beer similar to the sans fruit?
The sans fruit is the base beer.
You're kidding me.
Sans fruit
All right,
is the
this is
base
a
beer on
complete-
all our San Diego Vices.
This is a mind F.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Wow. Because they're very, very different. I would never guess that this was the base for what we're drinking
We
right
knew
now.
nobody was doing Vices like this, and that's why we were comfortable with changing the name to San Diego Vice. We're Americans, San Diego, bigger, stronger, faster. So we're like, let's pump it up, let's do it, and show people what can happen with great Berliner Weisses.
God, this would be really good with maybe a gingerbread cookie.
Oh,
Or
sure.
some, like a,
Why not ask the doctor what he would pair with
What
it?
would you pair with this?
Gingerbread cookie, cheesecake would be amazing. If we were doing
Yes.
cheese,
Oh,
I would
yes,
do something like a
some shortbread.
Boucherondine or a Briat Savarin, very heavy milk fat brie. This would go great with duck or a duck breast, or with a cocoa rubbed venison tenderloin too. It'd be awesome.
That sounds amazing.
Ceviche,
All by
ceviche.
itself.
Throw ceviche in there too while we're at it.
Ooh,
You just blew a lot of minds right now, including my own.
I know. I'm definitely going to be trying to get
I
into
like
these
the brie
pairings.
thought because I've had raspberry with brie before, although this is strawberry. But I like the way, the dryness and the effervescence of this beer would just kind of lift the fat off your tongue and
exactly.
cleanse your palate, and then just kind of leave you wanting some more.
Scrubbing bubbles, and it cuts through the richness of the best fats and proteins like meat, cheeses, and chocolates. Milk chocolate, it's great with also.
This is amazing.
Delicious beer, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I want more of that.
Well, we got to try guava next. So same thing, same base, but guava.
Same base, 5.6 pink guava. This beer, strangely enough, so there's the Rancho Beer Nardo Fest, which is equated as the oldest IPA festival in San Diego. It's only like 6 or 7 years, but most people aren't crazy enough to get 80 kegs of IPA and have partially finished kegs of IPA and try to move through them afterwards, right?
Right.
So they've been doing it for a while, and they told everybody bring an IPA or two and then bring something else for people that don't want it. And they have a write-in best of show, and they have all the IPAs listed on a line on their bottom. And it's put on by Grant Tondreau and the Urge team.
Okay.
And they, Pliny had won before. Pliny was there again, Pliny the Elder, not younger. And our Prince of Dankness got third place, which we were very excited about. And we were hoping for first, but we didn't get it. Pliny the Elder got second. And I noticed when the announcer was getting ready to announce the winner, he was kind of like looking over going, can we do this? And he said, yeah, it won, right? And so Pink Guava was the write-in winner for the IPA
right?
festival.
Really?
So we were pretty stoked about that.
Cheers to that.
Yes,
man.
cheers to that. That's awesome. That's
But
really
this is by
cool.
far our most popular. We've done a bunch of different ones. We've done Montmorency cherries already, where we had it on the pits, where it pulled off almond, cinnamon, and little marzipan notes from the pits. We've done boysenberry. We've blended the strawberry and boysenberry to make mixed berry bomb. And then we've got mango coming up and apricot in the next couple weeks. So
So the nose has sort of the guava underpinned by
Right.
the dank hops, I think.
Right.
I mean, you get the guava, but it's very subtle.
wait till you try it. Then you'll get the guava.
Oh, yes. Wow. Wow.
I like that. I've had some other guava beers, and I like that this isn't overly sweet.
No.
It's not, that just like sugary sweetness behind it.
If we ever did one where it came out sweet when we're tasting it, we would never release it. That's just, we're not going to do that.
I like that you have standards.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that.
We will never, it's all about quality, people, brewers out there. Never release a beer that you're not happy with. Never call it something else, and never just throw it in barrels.
I
Quality.
Love that. I love they don't just call it something else. I love that because that's huge, and and I've totally seen that before. And they're like, wait a second, like.
A lot of breweries are worried about taking the hit financially for whatever raw ingredients they have invested in that, but they don't realize that their brand can take a huge hit by putting out a beer that they're not.
You can only make one first impression, and you make that first impression every day with new customers and new fans. And so you can't brew a great beer unless you're willing to dump a beer. And luckily, we've been pretty with our experience and with the modeling of the styles that we're doing, and Bill's brewing acumen. We've been pretty successful. But when the day comes where we have to dump beer, we'll dump beer. And it always does.
So you're talking about like sometimes the financial hit. What kind of financial hit can that be?
It depends on the size of the brewing
Yeah, it
operation.
can be anywhere from 1,000 up to a couple thousand, depending on.
Yeah, we have a 15-barrel brew house, so you're basically dumping all that. You may, usually before you put hops in it, which isn't that expensive, but all the grain, the water, the labor, the things like that can determine. And if you're unlucky and it's later on when the hop bill's already added towards the end, then it's going to be the addition of those too.
Some guys wait till after a beer's packaged to dump it, and then you're eating
wow.
the taxes and everything
right.
on it as
Wow,
well.
holy
And
camoli.
if you have to do that, then you've got to call an TTB rep to come out and watch you physically dump it if you're going to claim relief on your taxes for it. The beer gets expensive the further it goes in the process. If you're going to dump it, it's better to do it out of the fermenter rather than a bright tank, because that's where the tax determination amount
begins, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Great beers, man.
Thank you.
This one tastes like an IPA first with a little bit of guava that kind of hits you in
Right.
the finish, in the middle and the finish.
I mean, it did win at the IPA Fest.
Well, I can see why. It tastes like it's an IPA with a little guava.
So this is our black San Diego Vice with black currant, also known as cassis. Now, beautiful color. What we wanted on this one was we're all wine. Well, I don't know if Bill is a big wine guy, but Chris and I are. So we wanted the cepage of a Merlot Cabernet. So sweet berries and cherries on the nose, but a tannic finish. So this one just locks in the wine drinker.
I could see why.
Yeah, the color's just beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, it's a beautiful color.
Well, and as you're saying the wine drinker, that's kind of what I've been thinking as we've tried these so far, is if you're looking for a convert, you know, you say I don't like beer, but I love wine.
Right.
All of these would be perfect.
All right, so this is cool because I think a lot of craft brewers are trying to capture the Bud Coors Miller audience onto the craft side. It feels like you guys are trying to capture the wine drinker, which is completely different. Or, you know, I think some of us do have some beers at least that might capture wine, maybe inadvertently, but you guys are making an overt effort here.
Well, remember, I've been consulting for a very long time, so if we're not going to do everything the way that I've been preaching it for years, then we're not doing it right. And so we're going to capture everybody. So we have one gateway beer, which is our White Rabbit Belgian Wit.
Okay.
We've softened it up a little bit with some fresh zest of Valencia oranges, but it's a 5.5% wit with the coriander burn and whatnot that Pierre would say. And so that's our BMC one, Bud Miller Coors beer, and that's the only one. We don't need 5 of them on because that just confuses people and it just confuses our staff. That's it. And then it's all about these kind of beers to bring in the wine drinkers. And then as we get into the bourbon barrels and different things, we're bringing in the spirit drinkers. And not that we recommend it when we make these, but people blend these fruits all the time, and we're bringing in the cocktail drinkers. So, I mean,
I was kind of
it's
thinking,
all there.
some blending. I was like,
Exactly.
it's like, I feel like this would go really well with the strawberry, just like, you know, give it that much more berry taste behind it.
When we have that mixed berry, so that's the same thing. But you wouldn't believe how many people come in and say, oh, you know, we've tried sours and we don't like sours, and we give them a taste of one of these and they're hooked.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. I've been trying so hard to really enjoy sours, and it has not been for me. But this is legitimately the first time that I'm like, I would go and I would order this and enjoy the entire thing.
We're going to pull in everybody 21 and over, and we're going to pull in everybody that drinks alcohol. So that should always be everybody's goal, right? You want to get that market share, so that's what the key is. But we're brewing beers that we love. We're not just doing it for commercial gain. That's nice. But we're brewing stuff we love that we can stand behind. We're not releasing anything. We released 7 beers on the soft opening, and our biggest compliment that we received, all of us, Chris, Bill, and myself, was, dude, I've never been to a brewery before where like 2 weren't awesome and everything else needed work. And we're like, yeah, well, that's why we're doing this, right? To show that it can be done if you are patient and do it the right way.
Well, you're definitely doing it the right way.
And it's amazing to think you guys haven't really been like doing this very long, because these
like
beers,
all together, you know what I mean? Like individually, but like all together, because this, I mean, I would assume, like the caliber of these beers, I would assume that would come out of, you know, of a Stone, of a Karl Strauss, of
Well,
these,
and
you know.
Yeah, that's kudos to the brewer. I mean, the brand new system, and to have, you know, beers coming out, you know, strong straight from the gate. And, you know, with guidance from Bill, you know, deciding on what the San Diego market really wants for beers. We're not doing the Grisettes, we're not doing Zwickel beers or, you know, Dunkels. You know, those are great one-offs, but, you know,
We want to do everything, but we want to get our brewer a pilot system, which I highly recommend for all breweries, because then if it's a beer that's not moving in the marketplace, you can still make a beer you love, but you can make 3 barrels of it, 6 kegs, and not have to worry about trying to move 28, 30 kegs of beer that nobody wants to buy from you. And a lot of people will have a taster of, but they won't drink pint after pint like they will an IPA or a sour or a big stout, right? So you have to be smart about it. I love Saisons. They're my favorite of all the styles.
That's how I got into craft beer.
But we haven't made a Saison yet, because I know right now it's not moving as much in the market, and we want to take our time, do it right, and have the right one, and we'll probably start off with some smaller batches and play with it and see if we can build a demand for people coming in to drink saisons like they do for our IPAs and our sours.
It's like the way that you say it is just like so like, you know, like this is just the way you do it, you know, and like it's just so matter of fact, and it seems to be working really, really well for you guys.
Yeah, we're very happy with the response from the San Diego community and the Southern California community.
So beyond the tasting room, are you guys distributing yet?
We're doing self-distribution. The thing I've always preached is 80-20 rule, 80% in-house, 20% out to establishments, the better drinking establishments, because really your margin, unless you're a giant brewery like in the craft beer sense, like Stone or Carl Strauss or Green Flash or even AleSmith locally, you need to be able to make the margin, and the margin is definitely selling a $7 pint in your tasting room versus selling a keg where the person who buys it and puts it on is going to sell that $7 pint, right? Mm-hmm. So we look at it as the 20% distribution that we're doing on our self-distributing is free advertising, basically with 100% return for us. So they're paying us 100% return on a keg to advertise our beer at their establishment and maybe have somebody come there. And our goal is to open 4 or 5 other tasting rooms. But we don't want to open other tasting rooms necessarily in San Diego because that's where we're selling the bulk of our beer in that 20%. And the worst thing you could ever do as a brewery is open a tasting room next to establishments that currently buy your beer, because you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and hurting them. So the Wild Wild West is really LA, and we're going to open a couple out there and probably 1 or 2 in Orange County or maybe the Inland Empire. But there's 160 to 200 breweries and tasting rooms in San Diego. There's almost 100 in Orange County, same population. LA County has 3 times the combined population of Orange County and San Diego County, and they have less than 75. So you could open 2 tasting rooms 20 miles away, and the same people will never go to both of them because it takes 2 hours to get there in LA.
Right. Wow. Okay. Wow,
So
brewers
cool
out there, I hope you're listening right now because you're getting some really good advice. That's awesome.
The tough thing about LA is, I mean, obviously the traffic. If you're like a distributing brewery there, you know,
It'll take you 45 minutes to get from one spot to
you're
another.
losing money in
Oh,
many
wow.
instances by distributing your beer, but a tasting room is completely
They come
logical.
to you.
Exactly.
You just have to go one spot.
There you go.
So,
So are we
what
on
are we
the
drinking
hops?
now?
Are we on
yeah,
the
I
hops
know you like
now?
hops. This is our Prince of Daintiness Double IPA, unfiltered. It's not Nor'easter, it's unfiltered. It's got 85 IBUs. We wanted something, this is kind of my baby in the fact that I really love Nelson, and I was always a big fan of Alpine Nelson for years and years and years. And so I wanted something big and dank, and luckily Chris and Bill both enjoy it also. So Nelson and it's all Nelson and Motueka. I mean, there's some C hops in the early edition, but for dry hopping and Whirlpool, it's all the Nelson. Nelson, we wanted to get, you know, if we're going to be ballsy enough to call it Prince of Dankness, it better be dank. So Nelson, it was like, I want garlic, onion, Sauvignon Blanc, diesel, and sorry people, but this is a classic interpretation of these hops, cat piss, right? And then to soften it up just a touch, we wanted to add in the Motueka, which gives a nice melon and tropical note. So big and dank and just crushable at 8.4, we think.
Oh, well, and as you're saying, you know, you admire the Nelson IPA from Alpine, which is one of my favorite beers. I can see where you were going with, because this is a really great ode, basically,
Right.
to Pat and Sean.
I mean, Nelson has rye in it, which is nice because it adds a little spiciness on top of it, but we didn't do that. But we think it's definitely our flagship double IPA. This will always be around. We've made about 5 or 6 IPAs now, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're dropping on the hazy train too there, Paul, because
I'm okay with it as long as it's not a yeast bomb.
it's fiscally irresponsible for a new brewery who can make them of any quality not to make them, because
Agreed.
you can make money on them.
Everybody wants them nowadays.
And we need money to start when you're getting going, so you can start doing the things you really love, like saisons, right? So by doing it, and they're not going away, people. They may not become as big and fattish, but they have become the gateway IPA because they're softer, less IBUs. So now you can turn somebody on who's drinking that White Rabbit or Wit into those hazy IPAs and not scare them away with something like this.
So I think they're more complex. I mean, they're fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this one, I get everything that you say is in there. except perhaps the cat piss. And that's,
is
by the way,
good.
it's a term that
It's
we've
good.
used
Right.
for 20 years or so. I used
Right.
to, cluster hops were,
Right.
pretty
Yeah.
renowned for having that characteristic, but I'm not really getting it so much in this. I do get the characteristic Nelson though, which only in the recent years has become kind of garlicky and oniony.
Right.
I think early
Agreed.
on it had more of the white wine, Sauvignon Blanc kind of character, but this is a fantastic beer.
Yeah, I mean,
really
don't be
good.
afraid, people. You will not be able to pick that up. If Paul Segura, come on, if Paul Segura can't pick it up, you can't.
I can't. So maybe you're your own worst critic on that. I think it's a delicious beer. An 8.4, it doesn't drink like it either. It drinks a little bit easier, perhaps.
You'll find that none of our beers drink to the level that you read when you read the ABV.
So
and
how
we're
do
not
you
just
get to that?
randomly writing those.
Okay, so how do you get to that then?
Well, with the fruits, it's obvious you put a lot of fruit in there, right? And you have the acidity, and so you have that sweet tart effect. With the IPAs, even though if you're not doing hazy, maybe you add a little flaked wheat or a little oats and things like that, and it just softens the mouthfeel, and so you're not getting that overwhelming dry bitterness. You can. I mean, we have a series called Indy Ipa where we do different single hop beers. We have Citron right now. We've done Citra Mosaic. We have Simcoe in the tank, and they're all singularly dry hopped with those, so they're going to pick up those characteristics. But we're all about introducing people into beer and then just taking them to a place they've never been before. So
This is really good.
So it also doesn't drink like 85 IBUs, which is probably, because of the wheat and or oats. It's very drinkable. But I think also maybe the gravity kind of helps. It's all, the IBUs are kind of relative to whatever the gravity of the beer is.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the two I guess
So
are
yeah,
correlated.
the higher the gravity. What's the old saying? The higher the gravity, the greater the general levity.
yes, yes, as people get inebriated. My wife is a lupomaniac, a hophead. And I have 3,000 of the rarest beers in the world. She won't touch them, but I can't keep IPA in the fridge or on my kegerator. So when we did our first batch, we had like a half barrel, and we could have put it on, but it had a little trube, and so I go, well, we'll take it home. And we drank it, and it's not like we drink every single night 5 pints, but we ended up drinking the whole a quarter barrel basically in less than 2 weeks. And I said, we can't be taking 8.4% IPAs home anymore, honey. We're going to brew some more ABV ones and maybe do that, because that's not a good thing.
Oh, well,
I
as
can
long
hardly
as
wait to taste the last
that's
one.
what I was gonna
here.
say. As long as we're going up the ladder right now, we're finishing today off with Hipster Breakfast Stout.
So 11% Imperial Stout with most of a Brazilian bean blend, proprietary blend, vanilla bean, 100% pure Canadian maple syrup, and a little bit of applewood smoke. So
That is
just
thick.
a hint in the aroma, and on the first taste, think egg, I guess I throw eggs in there naturally when I'm having a breakfast like this, but really it's bacon, pancakes, and coffee, right? Black, opaque, beautiful mocha head, just delicious. This would fall under the pastry stout category for sure, Paul, which are a lot of times really overly cloying. We try to balance it a little bit. It doesn't drink like 11%. There are some very popular, this is what the kids want. There are some very popular ones now that you need to check your insulin level, because they're so sweet, and this does have a sweet finish from the maple syrup, but you'll see the smokiness comes through. You'll hit a hint of coffee, and it has also nice chocolate, but it's very viscous. And
So the smokiness is really tricky to brew with, right? A little bit goes a long way, but I can get that smokiness in the nose. I'm trying to warm it up a little bit so it opens up here.
Yeah, this glass helps, but it definitely has to be at the right temperature to really start to pick up.
Oh, I've never tasted anything like this before.
That's our goal, right?
This would go great with a cigar.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
We're very excited about getting this base beer in bourbon barrels and then adding in these ingredients. We'll already have the smokiness from the malt, but having that in bourbon barrels where you naturally pick up vanillins and coconuts, right? And then seeing what else we need to add, if anything. But I could see definitely adding a little maple syrup. We're working with this one company out of Grand Rapids that does bourbon barrel aged maple syrups. We haven't secured them yet, so I'm not going to give you their name. but they have bourbon barrels that maple syrup is aged in. So we're looking to play with some of those. That's going to be fun. So.
Wow, this is
Different.
it's very different.
This with a little bit of Woodford Reserve. You get the vanillins and everything from the oak. Oh,
That's what
Man.
we're waiting for.
So okay, you're the perfect person to ask about this actually. When I think of stouts and what to pair with it, I automatically go to desserts. I automatically go to that. But what is something that isn't a dessert, it isn't a pastry that would pair with this really well?
Blue cheeses. I used to do a thing called Black and Blue at Stone where I'd have 7 blue cheeses and 7 black beers. They weren't all stouts, but the roasted barley and the roasted malt go great with the intensity of a blue cheese.
Does it kind of cut the intensity of the blue cheese?
It kind of balances it with, because
Okay.
most stouts that you would use are just more roasty, right? They have a hint of chocolate, espresso, and then the roastiness. A really fun thing to do with this is Kansas City barbecue, right? There's all kinds of different barbecues, but having that
Yes.
big, rich red sauce, which is known for Kansas City, goes beautifully with this, and it plays really well. If you're using, I wouldn't do this with a steak, for example, it'll wash out, but if you're doing a big gamey meat, and also if you're doing something like I said, that venison with the cocoa rub or an espresso rub on some elk or some lamb or even mutton, older lamb, things like that will go amazing. Of course, chocolates, right? We already know that. Any of those chocolates, things like that will go great. But definitely Kansas City barbecue, and believe it or not, some spicy stuff too, because this will calm the palate on the front and the back. It'll leave still a little bit on the mid palate where you can pick it up, but it definitely interplays really fun. So you could do it. I wouldn't do it with the chips and salsa, but other dishes like a Cajun rub dish, for example, where you got those spices. Or we think of cinnamon as a dessert ingredient, or right, cinnamon rolls, stuff like that. But most of the world thinks of cinnamon as a savory spice. They use it as a savory spice, India, places like that. So having those kind of ethnic regional cuisines with this, amazing.
first thing that came to my mind was mole.
Yeah,
Mole, oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, chicken mole is a no-brainer with this.
Well,
for
I was,
sure.
I think because of the smokiness, I was getting the barbecue, and I was like, man, it'd be really good to take one of these crowlers over to Grand Ole Barbecue in North Park and get yourself some fresh barbecue and drink this with it. Oh, wow.
This is amazing.
It's pretty fun, huh?
Very fun. Every sip, kind of, you get a flavor you didn't get on the previous sip.
I have to say that this was like a mind-blowing beer for breakfast. I've learned so much and tasted everything that's so different that I've never had before.
Awesome. That's our goal at Wild Barrel.
You're killing it. Real quick about the tasting room. Do you guys have food trucks? Is there food?
So we have food trucks right now from Thursday. We're zoned industrial. We're in a 21,400 square foot facility. We have 10,000 square feet. There's a joint 1,400 square foot lobby with SoCal batting cages right next to us. You're welcome, Dave. And they've actually started doing axe throwing. We've already gotten a call from the ABC saying, Mr. Sysak, are you guys actually throwing axes in your brewery? No, because
That worries me.
People misrepresent that, right? So yeah, no axes allowed.
I think I saw that on the news.
No
actually.
axes allowed in the
Channel
brewery, people. But so there, it's a very nice marriage that's going on there. So we have food trucks there. Because we're zoned industrial, though, we can't produce our own food, but we do have great chips and guacamole and salsas. We have So Rich chocolates, which we love, from John and Nilsson. And then we have San Diego Snack Company. We have gourmet pretzels. Eventually, we'll probably do cheese and charcuterie on top of that. We're getting ready to build out a patio for the spring, which will be fun. We're hoping to have a coffee bar because there's no coffee a mile away either side, and we're next to the busiest DMV in San Diego County.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to have a little coffee bar. We open in the morning. If we do that, we'll start having pastries and cinnamon rolls and things like that. And it's just fun. But
So
we
big
have
things
food
to
trucks.
come.
Yeah, big things to come. Huge tasting room, 10,000 square foot facility, Paul. 228 person tasting room, so holds plenty of people.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just a fun time.
Dog friendly? Family
Dog
friendly?
friendly.
That was my next question.
Dog friendly.
Good job.
Our
Good
barrel herder, our barrel master, does not want dogs for obvious reasons. We're going to try to get our sours off site sooner than later. But so that's how, he doesn't want them. But right now we still have dogs and we love dogs. And so that's a friendly family. Kids come in all the time. with their parents, run around, keep your kids under control, people. It is a drinking establishment, not a playground.
I like that you say that, because yes.
Yeah, it is annoying to those of us who don't bring our kids.
Well, you
to
know,
have to-
I'm all down for having a spot where, you know, people who have children, they can go and enjoy a beer and it's cool. But, you know, when your kid's like running around the tasting room.
Some people escape their kids by going to breweries, so you want to make sure if you're sharing the space, you want to be polite about it. At Stone, when I was there, that was our worst thing, those big, beautiful beer gardens.
Oh,
and
yes.
we're seeing kids swinging from trees and breaking branches and knocking out all these heirloom plants and things, and just the parents sitting there just ignoring them. Yeah, it's just little Johnny, who cares? Come on, take care of little Johnny.
We're not
We all
Chuck E.
want to
Cheese.
enjoy together.
Awesome. Well, Wild Barrel Brewing Company, San Marcos, you want to get there. If you see their beers anywhere, try them, because these are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Bill, for swinging by.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
I really
you. Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Paul, you know, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Good
Open
times.
365 days a year. We never close. We're open 11 a.m. every morning, excepting during football season, because football doesn't start at 11. It starts at 10, right? So we open at
that's right.
10.
Okay.
So we're there for you guys for your early morning drinking pleasure.
Follow them on social media. That's where you'll keep up to date with everything going on. And you don't want to miss the next beer and cigar dinner, it
They
sounds
sell
like.
out quick. Jump on it.
Yeah,
So-
Chris has great cigars. Sorry.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And so it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing the cigars that he brought this time. So it's going to be fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys, and thank you for watching Beer for Breakfast, ABV. You know you're jealous right now, so go get yourself some beer.
Cheers.
Cheers.